So on this evening, I had a photo shoot out at Fairlawn Country Club. It's a country club across town, across the valley. Anything over towards West Akron and those suburbs, I pretty much have to go in and out of the Cuyahoga Valley or the Little Cuyahoga Valley. It's one of those things with winter where you're always kind of like, you're looking at the hourly, thinking about what you need to wear, especially when it's going to be late afternoon into evening. And I didn't know how late I would end up out in the evening either. It gets a little annoying and frustrating. It was compounded this time because I was shooting at a nicer place, so I needed to dress reasonably nice. I definitely don't get dressed up for shoots like I used to when I used to put on dress pants and dress shoes and all that. But I was still like, I at least need to look presentable. Like pretty much all the important people in Akron are going to be there. The president of the university is the one who invited everybody. So kind of a big deal. I need to look presentable, or as presentable as I ever get myself. So I was trying to think of how I wanted to dress. I knew I wanted to wear my regular tennis shoes and not my riding shoes. They're 510s. They're less comfortable to move around in when I'm just like hanging out, and I also worried about them getting a little too warm. I ended up going with some regular summer riding socks, thicker wool socks over them, and my tennis shoes, and my feet were for the most part fine. I wore fleece lined tights and my black jeans, which, you know, are my fancy pants, as Aaron says, my version of dress pants. And then I wore a thin wool base layer on top, a wool t-shirt, and then my surly wool jacket, which is kind of a thicker thing, and I put my dress shirt over that. As I started to ride, I also had a windbreaker on then. I always put my windbreaker on. I realized this might be fine for my ride, but what about when I get there? My dress shirt's over the wool. Is that going to be too hot? You know, at a country club, are they going to be like pumping the heat in there for the older folks? You know how it goes. So it turns out I was like mostly fine on the ride. The only thing is, as you could see, I'm heading into the valley here, and then I have to climb out on the other side. I always try and remind myself when I'm like doing something more commuter-like, you know, just take it easy. You don't have to ride as hard. Like spin up the hills, don't put it in quite as hard of a gear. The thing is, like on this climb, the way I'm getting into West Akron, the gradients pitch up to like 14%. So even, you know, putting it in that 34, 42, you're still working. Of course, like the main reason I don't want to get sweaty is not because like, you know, being presentable. I could walk right into the bathroom when I get to the photo shoot and, you know, rinse my face off if it was that level of sweaty, which it's not going to be in the winter. But I just don't want to get damp. Even with quick drying wool, like you just tend to get, you know, chilly then when you head back out. I was also heading over to Fairlawn to get dinner first. I go to these events that I have to shoot. Everyone's standing around eating and drinking. I don't want to do that. I mean, obviously, I can't be standing there with wine in my hand when I'm working, but I also just don't want to be like, I don't want to snag food. It just doesn't look professional. So I've just realized I need to eat and do all that right before I get there. And so even when I was sitting in the restaurant, I noticed I had sweated a little bit, and I started to get chilled just sitting there, even with my layers on. So it's always trying to find that balance. Pretty soon I was actually doing this ride with like all my coats unzipped and the button down unbuttoned. But, you know, that's just one of those balances of winter you have to figure out. And like I said, for me, it's a little bit compounded by the fact that I was trying to look reasonably presentable. Right here, if you're wondering why I'm riding on the sidewalk, because I always get comments, I'm riding along like the busiest east-west street in Akron and Summit County, and my destination is actually over there on the right. This is the golf course, but there's no pull-outs here, so this sidewalk is actually a really long section. So for all intents and purposes, it might as well be the bike lane. This is also the commute I used to make every single morning when I worked at a car wash. So I hadn't done this for a while, but it's really familiar to me to ride this because I used to ride this on my commute every single day when I was in my 20s. I think I had to be at the car wash at 7, and I knew I definitely was not going to ride on the road with tired riders at that time of day. This area is pretty much where I grew up too when I was a kid, and these are some of the first places we used to ride our bikes. There used to be a Baskin Robbins actually right there on the right. So I know all the cuts that go behind the strip mall, suburbia area. But yeah, we used to take our bikes out here. This is where we'd go and explore when we were kids and just ride through the neighborhoods. There's even a cut up there straight ahead that we used to come through to get up into this area if we were trying to go to that ice cream shop or wherever. So yeah, it was kind of cool to come back, and I haven't ridden through the backs of these lots for a long time. And even when we were older then, like, you know, probably high school, we would be riding our bikes with our skateboards on our backs, you know, and we wanted to get a snack or something. This is where we'd come. One of our first skate spots was actually at the end of this alley on the other side of this building, but this building wasn't there at the time. It was a different thing. I think it was a supermarket called Clark's. So yeah, a little trip down memory lane from a number of different eras of my life as I was riding out here. I was heading to dinner at Ray's. Another reason I really wanted to get myself on the bike, sometimes when I'm out riding or when I'm getting ready for one of these photo shoots, I end up getting like flustered with trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my camera gear and my clothes. And once in a while, I'll just be like, heck, I'm just going to drive. On this day, I'm like, no, I really want to get a bike ride in. I want to get some miles. I'll enjoy my bike ride way more than I would. Obviously, I hate being in my car. So that's why I always try and ride my bike. Right here, this parking lot I'm going through was our main skate spot when I was a high schooler. All the curbs that are around this building, I noticed there were still some wax on them. So reminded me of those days. But yeah, so I'm not a slave to numbers, and I always say now, looking at like my Strava, anything over 5,000 miles, I know I've had a good year. The last few years, though, I've been able to get over 6,500 miles, and that's what I just put in as my goal. Like I said, I'm not a slave to those numbers, but now I'm kind of looking at it, and I'm like, I'm way behind, but I'm like, I could get there, and I just did the math, and it would be 30 miles a day every day until the end of the year. I know I'm going to miss some days, so that would mean I would need to get even bigger mileage in. I don't know. It's a goal in the back of my head. Like I said, I'm not a slave to it, but I do like a good challenge, so we'll see. Anyways, this is where I stopped for my dinner and a beer. Of course, no bike infrastructure, so I'm locking up to just a fence, But it was funny. I came in here, got dinner, and then a guy comes over and he was like, I was just talking about you. It was my buddy Bill. I had just taken his photo for a billboard in the studio earlier that day. So little random that I rode out to West Akron and got a beer and dinner and happened to see the same guy I'd seen a couple hours earlier. But yeah, then I had about a 2-mile ride to backtrack back to the country club. I asked the valet if it was cool if I just locked up to that tree, because again, it's not like there's going to be a bike rack at a country club, and I'm sure I'm the only person who rode a bike there. I thought it was kind of funny. He thanked me for asking him. He's like, usually people just chain it up and they don't even ask me. And I'm like, how often do you deal with people on bikes out here? I didn't say that out loud, but definitely thought it to myself. But yeah, so the ride home through the dark, back through the valley and everything. It's kind of cool this time of year with the Christmas lights out. I also say one of the things about once the leaves drop, the views really do change, and especially with our hilly topography, you just get a different overview of the stuff. One of the slight benefits of the winter coming on, late fall season. In general, I'll take summer any day of the week. Anyways, thanks as all for watching. Just a little random video about my ride last night. Peace.